I guess it's like that problem of understanding, like saying, oh, it's not complex, it's very simple actually, just do this, just, be happy, or look at the situation in this way. But I think the reality actually is that it is complex, but complex in the way that we are dealing with conscious thought, which inherently is complex. It's not something that you can almost describe in words. It is complex, but it is simple at the same time, because all it requires is for you to actually reflect and think without barriers and bias, which, I mean, it is a difficult thing to do, but it's a journey. So I guess when we say like, oh, it's simple, or oh, it's complex, that those words don't actually have any meaning. It's sort of like a child can do it, or an elderly person can do it. Anybody can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's simple or that it's complex in a way. But I guess I'm just rambling. But I was just trying to figure out, because I do this thing, especially when I find somebody who has the Spirit of the Lord in them. I do this thing where I start I fall in love with that spirit that I see in somebody, and it can blind me. Like with Pajal, like it was like a spirit of God, a side of God that I hadn't seen before, in a way. Like I hadn't seen this connection that somebody has with the Lord, and to be able to articulate it in a way that it's like the meeting of heaven and earth, isn't it? But then I was sort of almost dismissing his flaws, and that, I guess that's what I do. I start dismissing people's flaws, and then almost adding them onto myself, where it's like, you know what, this guy is so compelling. If only I could be as compelling as this guy. But I guess that is, again, the trap of worshipping something that isn't God itself, So now, I guess I had to be pushed to see the flaws in P, basically. And that he is too much, like I said before, like I was alluding to before, he was like too much of a hippie. And then he's actually revealing the secrets. Like he is standing on the ship like Jesus did, but like he is unraveling everything for people. And that can be a bit much, it can be too much for people. It's like when Moses came down from the mountain and people were like, terrified, like of his face, like lit up like it was on fire, and the people were like terrified of it. But I guess that is what P represents, for better, for worse. I'm not saying that is a bad thing that we have these Moseses coming down now with these like burning faces. That's probably what's needed. But for me, in my learning, I was kind of worshipping that image in a way, instead of eating what he had to offer and then going back to the Lord and going, look, how can I add this onto myself? And again, I guess I can see the flaws and now in that sort of way of doing things, where you can see what Pajal does, right? It's where he basically tells you the mystery straight up in your face. But now I'm seeing the dangers of that, because the more I watch him, and the people that actually kind of worship him, is that they taking Christ and then boiling him down into like complete meaning, complete symbology, which is good for somebody maybe who who is already a Christian because they know Christ as a literal person. And I think that is so important as well, to know Christ as, like, your mum is real, Christ is real, like he is a person, not a human, but like a real flesh and blood thing. Whereas Pajal is selling him as a symbol, which is good for us because obviously we're like, oh wow, like this is like literally the hidden treasures of God, like manifest through a man, like explaining it to us. But then someone who doesn't know Christ, they get these hidden treasures and they're like, oh my, Christ is like this apparition, he's this ghost, he only lives in our understanding of symbology. Like, it can be so dangerous as well, and that is now what I'm seeing, like the danger in doing that. It can be destructive as well. That's why, you know, all those things where, like, you know, you handle the word of God, like the mature people handle the word, they know how to handle the word of God. And I'm not saying that P doesn't know how to handle the word of God, he clearly does, but I guess I am looking at the nuances of it now that I've sort of come out of worshipping him a little bit. I can see the flaws in what he does as well, and I guess that's all what forgiveness and mercy is all about, because obviously none of us are Christ and can preach the word of God as perfectly as he does, obviously, because that's what he is. But I guess I wanted to just articulate that thought, because maybe it seems important, especially for myself.